Make no bones about it, I admire Wisconsin suing the Miami Hurricanes over the recruitment of Xavier Lucas. I admire it. Flat out, wholly 100%. Because for too long in college football, coaches will bitch about players entering the transfer portal, taking big-time NIL deals at new schools when they have put on their transfer portal form, do not contact. That means they know exactly where they're going and know exactly what they're getting, NIL money-wise, without supposedly talking to those coaches themselves. And everybody has complained about tampering and how, oh, well, my players got offered $1,200 million to go to... And nobody has ever been willing to say, this player went to this school because this person tampered with them, or this school tampered with them. Here's how they did it. I know how they did it. It's always been this wild, vague, well, it's now the Wild West and everybody's out here tossing out money and it's just not fair and it's just not right. When the only people who had the power to change this happening were the coaches. They had the power to say, hey, this is what is happening. This is where it's happening. This is who is doing it. And they haven't ever done that until now. And so I give Wisconsin a ton of credit because they're dragging it out onto the floor saying, hey, this is what happened. We feel incredibly likely that we're going to be successful in this lawsuit because they wouldn't do it otherwise. And we're going to put a stop to this. Now, there are a couple of things that Wisconsin has to worry about because this is a gamble. This is undeniably a gamble. One, you better have all your ducks in a row and have not been tampering with folks. Because if you're going to be the one that's going to be viewed as the police, if you're going to be the one who drags everybody on a mat and say, hey, here's what happens, here's what has happened, I have been wronged, you can't be guilty doing it to somebody else. And so that could be viewed as a positive for the Badgers, right? That we feel so strongly that this is incorrect because we haven't been doing it. And so they better have their ducks in order is all I will say about that. But the lawyer for Xavier Lucas said something that I think is incredibly poignant and correct in that you can win the battle and lose the war. And there are a couple of ways Wisconsin can lose the war in this scenario. One is, for the most part, college football as a whole has been overwhelmingly hesitant to say the college football players are employees. But you start suing another employer for taking one of your employees, it's going to be really hard to make the argument that college football players aren't employees. And I'm guessing that Wisconsin probably doesn't want to make their football players employees because in addition to $20 million in revenue that's going to go to the players going forward, you're then going to have to start giving health insurance, dental insurance, eye insurance. You then have 100 more people on workman's comp. You have 100 more people on unemployment insurance. You have, it's a whole big deal to make college football players employees. But when you start suing somebody else for taking your employee, and in Wisconsin's statement, they don't really hide the fact that they believe that Xavier Lucas is one of their employees, that he's that Miami's interference caused a breach to the university contract resulting in great harm. Such harm includes, without limitations, loss of a student athlete with valuable NIL rights who plaintiff UW-Madison, anticipated having in the program for the 2025 football season and beyond. Further harms include the loss of financial benefits stood to receive from student athlete A's continued participation in its football program. That is like employee contract law. This dude took our trade secrets to some other program And now we're not going to make as much money as we could have. When all of this stems back to Xavier Lucas play football real good. That's the crux of the argument, that Wisconsin had signed him to an NIL deal. He bails, goes to Miami, and now they're ready to sue over it. So that's one way you can win the battle and lose the war, is the law of unintended consequences. Does this ultimately prove that football players are university employees? That's not for me to decide, but I wouldn't be shocked if it got that snowball rolling down the hill either. The other way that you win the battle and lose the war is in the transfer portal. Because this is going to be a really easy thing to negative recruit against Wisconsin. They are suing a former player. They are suing a program that former player went to. And to impressionable young high school and college athletes, I think it's a really easy sell to say, do you want to go to Wisconsin where if you don't do exactly what they want, how they want, when they want, where they want, they're going to sue your ass? That's a somewhat powerful statement, because if you've ever worked anywhere or any time, like luckily it's become like, we laugh at it now, but for a really long time, I'm going to talk to my lawyers about this, I'm going to get my attorney involved, was the line anybody used in an argument, a disagreement. By God, if they put mayonnaise on your McChicken at the McDonald's drive-through line and you said no mayonnaise, I'm going to get my attorney involved. It was such a ridiculous thing that now we laugh at it, but for a really long time, it wasn't something that people laughed at. But for Wisconsin, you are now the school that is suing because somebody got in the transfer portal. And again, I think it's admirable. I appreciate it, because everybody complained for so long about how, no, this is ridiculous and nobody's doing anything about it, but I'm the only person who could do anything about it, but I'm not going to do anything about it. I just like to complain about it. And they're doing something about it. But there are so many unintended consequences. The negative attention that this probably brings Wisconsin, is it worth it? I don't know how financially you could probably quantify that with, yes, it is worth it somehow, some way. I don't know how you get to that point where you view it as, yes, this was a success in spite of whatever. Now, I'm sure Wisconsin is going to spin it as, yeah, we're passionate about the guys that we recruit, the guys that we build relationships with, the guys that we bring in, the guys that we develop, and we want you to come in, experience those things, and do it as Badgers, not setting other programs up to get drunk on the fruits of our labor. But it's much easier, much scarier, I think, to say you can go to Wisconsin, but they might sue you at some point. They've shown a history that they'd be willing to do it, is a really easy recruiting pitch for an opposing coach to make. And I think that's an impressionable recruiting pitch for a coach to make. You can win the battle. It might be, and it sounds like that sounds like a statement and a sentence from somebody who knows, like, shit, we might be cooked in a lawsuit. You can win the battle, but you're going to lose the war. I think that's undeniably true. I think you can win the battle, and it sure sounds like Wisconsin feels really strongly that they can win the battle, which kudos to them for doing something about a problem. But do you win that battle and lose that war? I don't know. Be interesting to watch in the months going forward, and be interesting to watch what all comes down from this lawsuit, this decision, this potential settlement. There are so many precedents that can be set from this. There are so many different avenues that we could look back on this court case potentially as a landmark item in what has shaped college football in the mid-21st century. I think it has that kind of power, that kind of ability. But we'll see what happens. And I think this is probably not the last time we'll talk about this here on the Daily Huddle. I want to hear from you in the comments below. Would you support your favorite team suing somebody on the program that they went to in the transfer portal? Let me know in the comments below. That'll do it for today's episode of the Daily Huddle. I appreciate you making us a part of your day, however it is, wherever it is you're doing so. If you're watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. Make sure you're getting all the great college football content we're pumping out. Listen on the podcast feed. Drop a 5-star review. It goes a long way in helping out the channel. See you tomorrow for another episode of the Daily Huddle.